थैंक यू क्यों बोल रही हूँ मैं थैंक यू इसी में ही मैं तो हेलो बोलना था Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning back in to Chai No Sugar with Shumail Ahsan. आज के हमारे guest is very, very special. She's very young, very talented, very ambitious. She has done a lot at this very young age of 21. She's a student at LUMS. She recently won Best Delegate at Harvard National MUN. She is right now leading the way for women in leadership at LUMS. She does public speaking training for corporate clients, for private clients at this very young age. This is not just spectacular, this is amazing. This is, to me, this is very, very, very inspiring. Thank you so much, Sabeen, for joining us today.
Of course.
We're gonna dive straight right in. Very first question. Sabeen, आप बड़े होते हुए भी ऐसे ही थी, confident, bold, partaking in everything going on, या MUNs ने आपको ऐसे shape किया?
So I remember from a very early age, I was very inquisitive.
Okay.
I would ask my dad all of these questions, right? I would ask him, let's say I'd say, how is a table made? And he would say, oh, it's made through wood, right? And then I would say, oh, then how is wood made? And then we would just keep playing this game again and again. And I would just talk a lot. I would talk all the time. Uske baad, my dad sort of pushed me. He was like, you like talking. So every time there would be anything related to talking, जैसे student council elections हो रहे हैं या कोई debate हो रही है, कोई speech हो रही है, I would always take part in that. No formal training ever, just passion for speaking.
Right.
Grade 9 में, I started doing MUNs. It's very interesting. I didn't have a coach then as well because I was in a smaller school. We didn't really have the resources to afford a proper coach and a proper team. I just remember a couple of my seniors came up to me and they were like, Aate Wasam ka concert ho raha hai. There's this thing called an MUN. Do you want to go? And I was like, yeah, I want to go. I'm a huge Aate fan. So I went. And now I'm standing there. And MUNs are a very complicated thing, right? There are certain rules and procedures that you have to follow. There's a proper format. I knew none of that.
Okay.
I hadn't done any research. I didn't know how to speak, when to speak, what to say.
Oh my God.
So I remember walking in and noticing all of these people properly trained from the leading schools in Lahore, right? And I was like, I'm so out of my depth. What am I doing here? But then I just spoke. I went up and I said whatever came to my mind. And I was screaming and I was red and I was terrified. But then I walked out of that committee at the end of the day. And I remember sitting in my car and thinking like, I love that. I loved the adrenaline rush that gave me. So I went home, I went on Google, I was like, what is an MUN? What am I doing?
After attending one.
And then I went back and then I just kept doing it and I never stopped.
All right. Yeah. So from this, is your dad your biggest influence in life?
100%. Because growing up, I think I've always seen him work in the corporate industry, right? But I've always seen him lead. Okay. And he leads through communication. I've always seen him communicate with people. And I've loved the way that he communicates with people, even with our family. And I guess that's one of the main reasons why I feel so comfortable talking to him, because he sort of mastered the craft of communication. So I just remember thinking, when I grow up, I want to be like him. And at that point, I thought that meant being a banker. But now I realize I just wanted to be someone who can communicate with people the way that he does. So I would say even now, he's the one who's brought me here to this podcast. He's the one who's going to take me to all of my interviews. He's going to make sure that I'm there where I need to be. He's going to take me to university. So 100%. He, I would say, is my biggest influence, but also my biggest supporter.
What does his influence mean to you?
It means the world to me. And I think as a woman in Pakistan, it means so much to have your father or one central male figure in your life, because it gives you unparalleled confidence. And that's very sad, to be honest, because of course, that's not to say that mothers do not play a central role. Of course they do. But what I've noticed is, knowing the fact that I have my dad, that if anything goes wrong, I can just call him, gives me the confidence to take up any space that I want, right? I am going to go to any podcast, any interview. I'm going to go anywhere when anyone invites me, talk to whatever client, because I know at the end of the day, I have my dad. So it's the fear factor is significantly reduced, I would say.
That's amazing. So he's your rock.
Yeah, 100%.
Zabardast, zabardast. But the next question kya tha ki what was your inspiration to attend your first MUN? Now I know it's Atif Aslam.
Yeah.
So Atif Aslam, let me just put it out there. आपकी वजह से एक लड़की ने MUN start किया और आज वो Harvard MUN जीत के आई है. So what's that to say about you? Good job.
The interesting thing is, this year on my birthday,
Huh?
there was an Atif Aslam concert on my own at my old school.
Acha.
And I attended that.
You attended
I
it?
literally spent my birthday attending an Atif Aslam concert. So
How did you feel about
full
that?
circle moment. Like,
Acha.
that was one of the highlights of my life. Genuinely.
Really?
Loved it.
So what sort of a person are you? जो concert पे सबसे पीछे था या सबसे आगे खड़ा होके ये चीज?
So that depends कि किसका concert हो रहा है, honestly.
अच्छा.
So I'm not a huge fan of a lot of different artists.
Okay.
I like very specific artists.
अच्छा.
And Atif just happens to be one of them. And also, it is because he's a great artist. But nostalgia is the main thing.
Oh, yeah.
I remember I have a huge age gap between me and my siblings, right?
Yes.
So there was a significant amount of time where it was just me, my dad, and my mom.
Okay.
And I remember I would be so small, I would be sitting in the front seat on my mom's lap, and my dad would be sitting on her right, and we would just be playing Doori by Atif Aslam,
Oh
the
my
entire
God.
album. So every time I listen to that album or that song, it just reminds me of that particular moment in that car, sitting between my parents. So that's just the nostalgia factor for me.
Oh my God, that's such a cute story. That's a very cute story. I'm gonna talk about your MUN, right?
Yeah.
You won Best Delegate at Harvard MUN. It's massive. ठीक है. In that very moment, before they announced your name,
Yeah.
and when the moment they announced your name, how was that moment? What did you feel?
So it's very interesting the way that awards are announced in MUNs because they sort of go in ascending order.
Okay.
Right? So with each category, you have a certain number of awards.
Okay.
So for example, let's say there's one category called honorable mention. So 3 to 4 people are going to get that particular award.
Okay.
Then 1 or 2 people, mostly one person gets the outstanding diplomacy award, which is number 2. And then one person gets the best delegate award.
Okay.
So let's say you're in the top 5. You're either going to get an outstanding diplomacy award, a best delegate award, or nothing.
Or nothing.
So you don't know up till the very last name is announced if you've gotten everything or you've gotten nothing.
Nothing.
So the names were being announced and we were moving in ascending order, and I'm sitting between our team. And there's also this point system at Harvard, right?
Okay.
So each award carries a particular number of points, which is then divided between the team. So when the year that I went, I won Best Delegate Award, but our team won Best Small Delegation Award. So we won as a team and I won individually.
Okay.
So I was also thinking, my team members were telling me that if you won OD, then this is our chance of winning Best Delegation. But if you won BD, then this is the chance of winning Best Delegation.
All right.
So there was maths going on around me and I was just sitting there and I'm just thinking, oh my God, I don't know what's going to happen. And then it says Best Delegate and there's just a slide and then it shifts and then it says my country's name,
Oh my
the country that I was representing. And there's this video of all of us literally screaming because no one had ever won Best Delegate before.
Oh my God.
We'd won an OD. No one had won a BD.
Goosebumps.
And we literally, all of us just got up and we were screaming. And I remember just walking there, walking back. I don't remember any of it. It was all it
Okay.
is. But then I came and sat down and my committee was the last committee to be announced. And then I was like, okay, I won Best Delegate Award. I was the only one in the team who won that award. We did win some other awards. But then it was the time to announce Best Small Delegation. And when they announced that, and I realized that not only did this award make me a champion, but this award made my entire team a champion. That feeling was unmatched. We had the Pakistan flag draped around our shoulders.
God.
We walked up there, we got our award, we took a picture. It was insane. It was crazy.
I'm going to ask you a very patriotic question.
Yeah.
ठीक है? Obviously, it was a personal win for you. Definitely. ठीक है? It was, for everything you have done in your life before being in that moment. It was for everything you had worked for in that moment to get to that moment. फिर एक फीलिंग आती है जिधर आपके परचम की बात आ जाती है. ठीक है? जिधर वो एक सफ़ेद हरा परचम जिसके ऊपर एक क्रेसेंट मून है और एक सितारा है, एक उसकी अहमियत आई थिंक हर सिटीजन के लिए, अपने मुल्क के सिटीजन के लिए, ठीक है, एक उसके जो फ्लैग की जो एक वैल्यू होती है वो बहुत ज़्यादा होती है. To be able to drape that over yourself and stand on stage, to be able to represent the country in that moment. How was that feeling?
So that was my primary motivation walking into Harvard. Ever since I was growing up, I had this one dream. I wanted to be the president of Pakistan.
Acha.
Growing up, if you ask me, Sabeen, what do you want to be when you grow up? I want to be the president of Pakistan.
Acha.
But not because of it's a ceremonial position or because, you know, it's power or whatever. I just thought that I wanted to do something for the country. I grew up with that, right? To the point that I literally decorated my room with the Pakistan flag. You know how people decorated with posters? I had the Pakistan flag on my room, on my wall. So I remember before we went to Harvard, the entire way I was listening to Jazba Junoon, I was listening to Dil Se Maine Dekha Pakistan. But when we did sort of go up there, the first questions that were asked of us when we told everyone that we were Pakistani was, oh, Pakistan mein MUNs hote hain, or like English mein, there are MUNs in Pakistan. You guys can speak such well English. How is that possible? And I'm just looking at them like, yeah, we have an education system. We're taught how to speak English. So I realized very early on at the start of the introductory sort of session that we were not only carrying the weight of our own personalities, we were carrying the weight of being a Pakistani.
Yes.
And then further on also, we were carrying the weight, I at least, was also carrying the weight of being a Pakistani woman who identifies as a Muslim. So all of these identities sort of weighed very heavy on me because everyone would go out for food and then I had to explain to everyone that I can't eat meat, I have to have halal food, and then they would ask me questions. And then I realized that right now at this very moment for this group of 20 people and then this entire conference and this entire organization of 1,400, 1,500 people, I am the representation of all of these ideals, right? What does it mean to be Pakistani? What does it mean to be a Pakistani woman? What does it mean to be a Musliman Pakistani woman, right? So I just remember thinking to myself, I have to win. I have to win because I need to change this perception. But I also remember thinking, I have to win in the nicest, I have to win in a way that makes them happy that I won. Like, I don't want to step on anyone's toes. I don't want to tarnish our reputation and our name. So I remember putting in so much effort, trying to befriend everyone, trying to make sure everyone felt recognized and respected and loved and cared for. And then when we did win, I remember I just didn't want to take the Pakistani flag off my shoulders.
Oh, that's so sweet.
It was as though it was the culmination of everything we'd worked for. And it was insane. I remember we went to Harvard after that. So the conference itself happened in Marriott. They outsourced the conference, but all of the people who are conducting the conference are Harvard students, right? So after that, we have a mandatory Harvard tour. And during the entire tour, we're just walking around with the Pakistani flag draped around our shoulders. But it was incredible. It was insane.
All right. Sabeen, how do you balance your life at LUMS? The fact you told us कि आप public speaking करती हो. अच्छा पहले तो आप मुझे बताओ जो public speaking में what actually is public speaking? How do you train people when you're training them for public speaking?
So a lot of people have this misconception that public speaking is you standing on a stage in front of a crowd. That's not what public speaking is. It's every single time you open your mouth in public, you're participating in public speaking. You're ordering food at a cafe. You're talking to your friend, right? You raise your hand in class, you're answering a question. You are giving a presentation. You're giving an interview. All of this is public speaking, right? So what I teach is that there are certain fundamentals of public speaking. And the way that I see public speaking is that it's just learned behaviors. So a lot of people think, I stutter a lot, I use filler words, I can't use my body language, I can't maintain eye contact, it's just the way that I am, and it's always been like that. And then I tell them, it's been like that because it's a behavior that has been ingrained within you. But what we're going to do is we're going to recognize that it's a behavior that's not serving you. It's not furthering your communication goals. You recognize what that behavior is, and then I give you tools, I give you certain exercises to break that behavior and adopt a new one. Because our brains, as you know, the concept of neuroplasticity, they change, they adapt. So when you are put through a series of challenges, different exercises, you're taught to use different frameworks, your brain changes. And you see these changes happen in real time, right? And then over a period of time, we see that these behaviors, they change. So a behavior that you thought was set in stone is now a behavior that you're never going to exhibit anymore. It's been replaced by a much healthier, better serving behavior. So that is what I essentially teach people to do. And I work on a couple of fronts. So with younger audiences, I have competitive speaking training. So if you want to do MUNs, debates, so obviously a lot of people want to learn how to do MUNs.
Yes.
So I teach that. But with corporate professionals, people who are a bit older, who are just starting their career or who are currently in the middle of their career, I teach them that how do you connect with your team, right?
Okay.
How can you give presentations? How do you speak to someone above you and someone below you in a way that's neither threatening nor submissive? So how can you further your own personal goals through communication? That's what I teach.
All right. So has it ever been daunting to you yourself कि जब आप कभी को बता रहे हो या initially start में when you were trying to train people कभी खुद बीच में एकदम stutter हो गए या खुद बीच में एकदम परेशान हो गए कि oh God जैसे for example एक corporate आप एक event पर हो वहाँ पे आपने there are masses there 50 लोग हैं और उधर you're just like oh my God or probably your first interaction were you scared yourself पहली दफा में
So the first ever training program that I had was my public speaking training program, not an MUN program, just this corporate public training program that I created, public speaking training program that I created. And I just put it out there. I was like, no one's going to sign up. I'm just going to do this. And then the maximum number of people I had sort of chosen for that program were 10. Because I decided that I can work with 10 people. I can give them enough group attention, but also individualized attention. 10 people signed up. I didn't really look at the Google form at that point. I was like, मैं नहीं देखती demographic, बच्चे ही होंगे. And then the first day of the training, I asked them to introduce themselves. And they're corporate professionals. They're people with 15 years of experience. They're people double my age.
Oh my God.
I was taken aback because that was my first ever training experience. But it was amazing. It was incredible. And what I love most about training is that you get better every time. So people may think that they're learning from me, but I'm learning from them, maybe even more, right? So it is daunting. It's always daunting. So for example, today I had a student from Afghanistan, my first student from Afghanistan. In my last training, I had my first student from Peru. I've had multiple students from India. I'm training someone who's currently a Harvard graduate student, right? So these things, they genuinely push you out of your comfort zone. And there's this concept of imposter syndrome also, right? I'm currently a university student who went to Harvard once for a competition, and I'm training someone who's currently a Harvard graduate student, right?
Yeah.
So 100%, but I believe you just have to shoulder through that, power through it, because it doesn't, what I've learned from all of this is that your age doesn't determine anything. Your background doesn't determine anything. The amount of experience you have doesn't determine anything. But the amount of passion that you have, that determines everything. Because people will always gravitate towards other people who are passionate about what they're doing. And that's what I've sort of seen in my line of work.
Acha, so when you speak about your line of work, there must be certain skills, certain habits आपकी अपनी, ठीक है, जो आपको लगता है probably in your head जिसने आपको help किया to reach here. Are there any sort of skills जो underrated हैं आपके अपने दिमाग में या probably in other people's mind you think, for example, me as a person, I'm just like, okay, this is skill A, and I think this is not that much of a useful skill. But for you as somebody who is training people for public speaking, you're just like, no, this skill A is the most important skill you can have in order to be able to speak properly in public.
So I think that the most underrated skill for me is the ability to understand that you are not perfect. Doesn't matter it doesn't matter if I have a Harvard BD, right? It doesn't matter if someone else has years and years of experience. If you're sitting in a training and if in your head all you're thinking is, I know what I'm doing, right? if you can't put those preconceived notions aside and sit in that training and understand that right now I'm here to unlearn and relearn, and there's always something that I can learn, you're never going to benefit from anything, right? And I think also as a trainer, one underrated skill that I've noticed is learning how to help people. People never focus on that, right?
Yes.
Because we come from such hyper competitive environments.
Yes.
Whether that's our schools, whether that's our careers, whether that's even the extracurricular activities that you have, MUN, sports, you're trained to constantly compete against one another.
बिल्कुल ठीक.
But the thing is, unless and until you learn how to help other people, you won't learn how to connect with them. If you can't connect with them, you can never add value or extract value
That's
from them.
very true.
You're just constantly going to be in a competition with them, and it's not going to take you anywhere. So that's very underrated.
That's very interesting. You're speaking of high competitive environments. You yourself have been in those environments. जिधर आप committees में हो और very highly competitive committees में हो, MUNs में हो, debating sessions. How do you prepare for something like that, mentally and physically?
So I think the best answer for this is passion. I think passion trumps everything else. You could do meditative exercises, you could make an entire sort of planner that I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. But when you walk into a hyper competitive environment, all of those variables, they're going to be stacked against you. You're going to go in with 5 plans and 10 things are going to go wrong. And the only thing that you have at that moment is passion. It's that drive that I'm just going to keep moving forward. It doesn't matter what else is falling apart, right? So for me, it's just this ability to visualize yourself on the other end, that you won. And then when you see that, when you have that vision, you automatically just take all those steps that are necessary to get to that point.
That's amazing. When you speak about being able to visualize, do you mean कि आप अपने जो सारे steps हैं ahead, क्योंकि कुछ लोग इसको overthinking के लिए भी take कर सकते हैं कि visualize करना है, I have to do this and that and that and that. What do you mean by visualizing yourself?
Right. So I wouldn't necessarily say that you sit and visualize every single little aspect of what you're going to do and what you're going to say and how you're going to behave. Instead, you think about a broader picture, right? So there's this persona that exists, like there's this person that exists, and that person is you on the other side when you have made it through this particular obstacle, right? Okay. So for me, it's simply seeing myself, okay, I'm standing on the other side, I have a award in my hand, and these are some values that I did not compromise on. So I think for me, it's not a positive, so it's not an exercise where I sit and think what I'm going to do, it's rather more of an exercise of what I'm not going to do. Because it's very easy, especially in MUNs, to sort of backstab other people, speak. Some people are just a little bit more easier to manipulate. I don't think manipulate is the right word, but some people, they're just easier to sort of, work around with, right? And some people really use that in a very negative light. Okay, we're going to pretend to be friends with them, but at the end of the day, we're just going to make sure they're on our side. Things that also happen in the real world, right? In competitive environments. If someone's if they're not vocal enough or they're not dominant enough, so you think that you can just sort of make them work for you, right? Or extract value out of them. And I think that all of these things exist in an MUN, and it's really easy to sort of use them to further your own goals and to get where you want to go. But then the question is, would you really consider that a win? So for me, it's not a win. So that's what I just think. I'm not going to do this and I'm going to get here. And then everything else just falls into place.
And that's a brilliant way. That's a very rare way of thinking things. I want to know your one memorable incident that happened during the MUN, which was your defining moment. It's not about the award winning, but something that happened during the debate, during the MUN, that was like, okay, now this is the defining moment, or where you thought, okay, this might be that one moment where things change or flip.
Yeah. So again, in Harvard, it's a global conference.
Yes.
So you don't have as many Americans as you have people from all over the world.
All right.
So in my committee, we had people from Peru. We had a lot of people from Latin America, South America. We had a lot of people from the Netherlands, and we had people from America itself. We had people from India. So there was a plethora of people, right?
Yeah.
Plethora of nationalities around me. And I remember the second day of the conference, we all had to go grab dinner. And at that point, people knew me. I had tried to strike up conversations with people. I was trying to be nice to everyone. And we got up, and everyone was talking about food. So another group of people, they just left. I think they were going to Starbucks or something. I decided I wouldn't go because we were obviously boycotting and everything. But then also, we had so much trouble finding halal food in Boston. We just couldn't find it. I don't know. Maybe we were looking in the wrong places, but it was an entire issue. So I remember I was just standing there, and then all of these people, this group of people, they looked at me and they were like, "Oh, Sabeen, you know how you can't just eat anything? So what we're going to do is we're going to Google for places that serve specifically, what is that type of meat that you eat?" I was like, "Halal meat?" They were like, yeah, we're going to Google halal meat places. I was like, okay. And then these group of people, and we had American people, we had Latin American people, we had people from India, we had people from China. All of us walked for half an hour to go to a shawarma place, an Arabic shawarma place. And they sat with me, and for most of them, it was the first time they'd ever had Arabic cuisine or had ever had a shawarma. And then they're like, "Oh my God, this is so good and this is so nice." And I'm just like, I'm just happy I'm having meat because I haven't had meat in such a long time.
Oh my God.
There's this picture of us all sitting there at this deli, right? And we're just eating shawarmas. And it just, the kindness that people have for other people,
Yeah.
the amount of respect that they can have, if you put aside, all of these geographical and political considerations and these things that are fed to us, right? These stereotypes that are fed to us. If you put those aside and if you meet people for who they are, they're going to be the kindest, nicest, most respectful people who are going to go out of their way to sit and have shawarma with you. So at that moment, I realized it genuinely doesn't matter if I win an award. Like, look at me. I'm sitting with people from all over the world and we're eating shawarma. And like, they're asking me about my history and about my culture and why I eat the way that I eat. And it was incredible.
I have a follow-up question. All right, so that follow-up question is, was this your first, all right, before I ask that, was this your first experience abroad?
It was my first time ever sitting on an international flight.
Okay, that's new. That's okay. We're gonna come to that.
Right.
Acha, before we come to that, I want to ask you कि obviously living in Pakistan, आपको news से जो खबरें आती हैं, ऑनलाइन प्लेटफॉर्म्स पे जो आप देखते हो कि अच्छा यार लोग हमारे बारे में, हमारी एथनिसिटी के बारे में, हमारे रिलीजियस बिलीव्स के ऊपर जो हमारे ऊपर एक परसेप्शन लोगों का है, डिड यू थिंक दैट व्हेन यू मेट पीपल इन पर्सन देयर फ्रॉम ऑल ओवर द वर्ल्ड that most of it that you've heard online through social media, through TVs, that was not true?
100%. And it's interesting. When you walk into a space that is not your home, your identity and the stereotypes people have about said identity walk in before you do.
That's true.
Right? So there's this persona of you walking in, and then it's you, that individual, who walks in later. And it's interesting because it goes both ways. So I can't sit here and say that I was offended that people thought that Pakistan mein English nahi bolni aati logon ko, because there were certain stereotypes that I had about other global citizens.
True.
And that is just, unfortunately, the way that misinformation, and it's essentially what sells, right? It's what the media is able to sell. It's a consumption problem.
Yes.
This is what people want to see. So it's being fed to them. But I remember when we sat there and we were all just working on our resolution, we were drafting together, we were making fun of things. We were literally, despite all of our apparent differences, our ethnicities and the countries that we belong to, our socioeconomic class as well, we were just kids. We were just 21, 20-year-old kids just sitting there and thinking, oh my God, we can't wait for another break because we're really tired. So yeah, a lot of these things I think are man-made. They're constructed deliberately.
Yeah.
They serve certain agendas, but those agendas may benefit nations, they may benefit politicians and certain entities, but they're never going to benefit you as a person.
That's true.
So why participate in it, right?
That's true.
So just look at people for who they are.
Yeah. Sabeen, we've talked about your experiences. We've talked about, what you felt there. We've talked about all of that. I'm gonna ask you कुछ लोगों के लिए ओ क्या दोबारा बात उस तरफ लेके जा रही है, but I think it means a lot. The fact that you being a woman, a young girl, going out there, breaking stereotypes, because एक तो जैसे डिबेटिंग एक चीज़ है, राइट, उसके अंदर बहुत ज़्यादा बोलना, और इधर तो साइड कमेंट्स आने लगे थे, लड़की है, बहुत बोलती है, बोलने का शौक है, क्या करेगी, ये वो इस तरीके से. मेरे ख्याल से all that you have done, it's not that it's my opinion, I think it's a fact that what you have done is groundbreaking. Your achievements are not just yours, this is my opinion, that they are for every woman out there. You have put that stepping stone हम सबके लिए, where not just हम इस चीज़ का सोच सकते हैं, हम actually कर सकते हैं जाके. So I want to know कि what have you done in your capacity right now as a student in your university to further this whole journey of yours for and for other people to be part of that journey in your university? Have you done anything in your personal capacity?
So I think the biggest thing that I did was make my platform, right? So social media is something so polarizing. And I think it's one of those things that it is what you make it. You give meaning to it.
Yes.
So of course you can take it in a very negative direction, but you can also take it in a very positive direction.
Bilkul.
So I started sharing my story. I started talking about how I went from someone who was studying in an institution where we couldn't even afford an MUN coach to then sort of going all the way to Harvard and winning. And then I decided, you know what, it's not enough for me to just talk about my story. I want to help other people get there. So then I started making these videos and these explainer videos about what exactly I did. And then I thought, you know what, this is not enough. Let me take this a step further. And then I started hosting masterclasses and trainings, and all of my trainings have different price tags also to make sure that every single person across the board is being accommodated, right? And it's just, sometimes I do these little Q&A segments on my Instagram stories, and I always try to do them once a month because I just love talking to people and being able to help them. And so many people, unfortunately, so many women, they text me and they're like, Sabeen, how do we convince our parents to let us do an MUN? How do we convince our parents? And then I tell them, okay, oh, you know, I'm studying law at LUMS. And they're like, oh, how do we convince our parents to let us as a woman study law? And then, you know, this concept of people essentially telling me, okay, how are you doing things that are, you know, things that are inherently patriarchal in nature, right? You're studying law. And then you're doing public speaking and you're training and you're traveling and you're putting yourself out there. And it's something that you said that I really resonate with is, in my opinion, a lot of people think that to be successful in a particular goal, you have to go all the way through. I don't believe that. So one of my goals has genuinely always been to change the perception that Pakistani women have about themselves. Right?
Yes.
So yes, there are a lot of external barriers that exist in Pakistan, but there are a lot of internal barriers. There's internalized misogyny. There's this concept that we can never break free. And you'll see that sometimes, unfortunately, it's the mothers who become the biggest roadblocks for the daughters.
100%.
And the daughters who become the biggest roadblocks for their siblings or for their friends. And that's horrible because what we need most in life is encouragement from the people around us, right? So for me, when I think about it, sometimes I get really disheartened, right? Because you see all of these cases that are coming up, young girls being murdered simply for existing online, right? Honor killings, people misusing the concept of religion and deen for their own personal gains. And then you feel disheartened because you're like, can I genuinely do something? Can my voice really make a dent in this iron dome that exists? And then I get messages from people. And they're like, oh, because of you, we did our first MUN today.
Oh, that's sweet.
And then for me, that's enough.
Yeah.
That what you said exactly is that if something that I did just carves the way forward for one person to take one step, maybe I'll stop there.
Yeah.
But maybe she can take 10 steps further than I ever thought to.
Very true.
And for me, that's all that matters at the end of the day.
That's really good. Yeah, the fact that, you know, I'll say कि आप मैं हम जैसे we have had the privilege कि हमारे पास supportive parents हैं, हमारे पास इतना financially हम लोगों को अल्लाह ताला ने इतनी capability दी है, we're studying at prestigious universities, या उससे पहले हमने एक schooling की है. What do you think कि या have you ever thought कि there are ख्वातीन out there are बच्चियाँ out there जिनके पास इतना bare minimum chances या opportunity भी नहीं है कि वो आकर जो है एक schools में पढ़ लें या वो आगे कहीं सोच भी सकें इस तरह का. मुझे उधर ये चीज़ आपकी बहुत अच्छी लगी. ये बात मैंने इसलिए की है क्योंकि you said there you have different price brackets.
Yes.
You try to accommodate everybody from every background.
Yes.
उसमें इसमें आपके किस तरह के efforts put in होते हैं? Because I think this is something you're doing very noble. This is a very noble cause that you're doing because हमारे इधर unfortunately जो same जो circle एक होता है ना वो उधर तक ही महदूद होते हैं.
बिल्कुल.
They don't try to go beyond that circle. ठीक है? They don't try to cater people who are outside that circle. And the fact कि आपने mention किया, I would want you to elaborate on that specific portion, if you can.
So, as you mentioned, people are very comfortable existing in the bubble that they currently exist in, and they always think about moving further. They're never going to think about looking back, right? But for me, it's interesting, and I think it's a very personal sort of thing, but I feel like every time I take a step further, the thought that I'm leaving so much behind, it weighs me down.
Yeah.
It pulls me back every time. So for that, it's, the sad reality is that you have to do something that is giving you some value. True. Right? Like as a student, I need to make sure that my fees is being paid, that I can sort of make sure I'm managing my own finances, all of that. But at the same time, you have to have a balancing act, right? So, okay, I'm getting some value out of this so I can make it sustainable. But then based on that value, how much of myself can I put forward for my community so that they can get value out of me, right? And for me, I think this comes from a little bit of a religious lens as well. This concept of sadqa, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of people think that sadqa is purely monetary. Okay, you have a certain amount of money, therefore people have they've given the religious mandate to have certain amount of that money be put in their hands, right? That's the concept of sadqa. But I think the concept of zakat and sadqa goes beyond monetary.
True.
Right? I think if God has given me the ability to communicate with people, it is a zakat and a sadqa that I owe onto the people, that I sort of use whatever resources that have been given to me to uplift them. Yes, I need to do charity, but yes, I also need to make sure that if I as a woman have learned how to make sure that I can hold myself in any conversation, that I can fight for my rights, that I can convince my parents to let me study, it is a duty and a responsibility on me that I also make sure that all of the women around me, they benefit from that. They can learn from that, right? They can sort of get value out of that. So that's
beautiful.
just, I think, the way that I see it.
I would love for you to be able to convince women to think this way for once. What you have said, पहले जो तुमने एक बात की है कि, not just के external factors हैं जो हमारे लिए stones and obstacles and hindrances बने हुए हैं, हमारी अपनी सोच भी इस तरीके से है. क्या, I want to know about you. Were you ever शिकार of such a सोच? Were you ever, a victim of this internal hindrance, internal obstacle?
I think one of the most unfortunate things that happened to me as a child was at a very early age, I became very conscious of my external value.
Yeah.
Am I overweight? How do I look? Right? Do I have hair on my face? Am I conforming to the societal beauty standard? For some people, unfortunately, they are never put in a position to break out of that. So they spend their entire lives putting an effort into increasing their external value. They therefore do not have the time to increase their internal value. There was a time where I very consciously decided that, okay, I look the way that I do,
Yeah.
right? but what am I from the inside? It doesn't matter what I look like, but oh my God, I'm a great communicator.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter how people physically perceive me from the outside, but I know I'm a good person. If they talk to me, they're going to like me. So I think that it's very important that as mothers and older sisters and seniors, and if there's anyone in your life, any woman in your life who looks up to you, it is your responsibility to tell her that you do not carry the burden of this external societal pressure of looking a certain way. But what burden you do carry is making sure that all of that internal value that you have, maybe you have some skill that you've never thought of before, right? Maybe you're the best chef in the world. Maybe you are the best mathematician that's ever lived. But you're never going to be able to realize that unless you sort of break away from all of these things, right?
Yes.
Focus on different things. And also, unfortunately, there's this, again, this is something that I genuinely believe benefits a lot of companies, especially skincare companies and fashion industries and the health and wellness industries. Women are always pitted against one another.
Yes.
Always, right? Oh, you've lost 2 pounds. Oh, but she's lost 5, right? Oh, you got this many grades, but she got even better grades.
Yeah.
Why? I don't understand why people cannot accept the fact that one person's elevation does not diminish yours, right? You have your own standing, they have their own standing.
Very true.
But the true is opposite actually. What we just talked about. The more elevated a girl is going to be, a woman is going to be, she's going to make sure that you rise above her.
Yes.
She's carving the path for you.
That's
so you
true.
should be her biggest supporter, not her biggest critic.
I have a follow-up question from this. You just said कि instead of looking about कि मैं किसी objective standard में fulfill कर रही हूँ, fall कर रही हूँ कि नहीं कर रही हूँ, किस तरह से दिख रही हूँ, क्या है क्या नहीं है, you should be able to appreciate yourself, right? Now, I want you to tell me something about this as a public speaker who is working for the betterment of both men and women.
Yes.
एक परसेप्शन है कि आप ना अपने बारे में आप अच्छा नहीं सोच सकते, ठीक है? बहुत ज़्यादा स्टटर हुआ है अभी. सो फॉर एग्जांपल, अगर मैं एक अच्छा कुक हूँ, ठीक है, रिगार्डलेस मेरा जेंडर क्या है, अगर मैं गलती से अपनी तारीफ कर दूँ, यार मुझे ये चीज़ बड़ी अच्छी बनाने आती है, तो जो बैशिंग आगे से आती है, तो एक आपका ना एक इंटरनलाइज्ड बिलीफ बन जाता है कि यार आई एम नॉट गुड एट एनीथिंग. अंदर चाहे समवेयर इन द कॉर्नर एट द बैक ऑफ योर हेड यू आर सो गुड एट दिस, बट एक एक्सटर्नल फैक्टर्स की वजह से या आप अपने आप से इतना खौफ में रहते हो कि आप उस चीज़ को एक्सेप्ट ही नहीं कर पाते हो. हाउ इम्पोर्टेंट इज इट टू बी एबल टू appreciate yourself?
Yeah.
How important is it?
So I think this is an interesting question because it has a tendency of flowing in a very negative direction.
True.
Right? Let's say there's someone who becomes a bit too conscious about the fact that they're good at something.
Yeah.
Right? That veers into the direction of becoming an unpleasant sort of situation. Right? Someone who is a bit too egotistical about themselves and their beliefs, but the fear of that makes you exhibit a behavior that is so far below your standard that even that is very detrimental, right? So what I believe is that you should never focus on proving other people right. Let's say I say I'm a great communicator and you say, no, Sabeen, I don't think you're a good communicator. That conversation ends here. It should not be an effort that I now put in to convince you that no, I am a good communicator because your value speaks for itself.
Yes.
If you have to speak for your value, then you're not at a point where you're valuable enough, right? If you look at all of these luxury brands, you're never going to see a marketing campaign for a luxury brand, right? Because its value speaks for itself. It's the same sort of thing that you don't have to stand on rooftops and shout at the top of your lungs that I am amazing, look at me. But you do have to stand in front of a mirror and tell yourself, I know that I'm good. I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing. Everything else will flow from there. So I think that we are misdirecting our efforts. Put all of that effort into proving yourself right, into proving other than proving someone else wrong, is what I would say.
Where do you think we should draw the line? जैसे आपने कहा है कि there is a fine line कि आप इसी चीज़ को जो ये सेल्फ अप्रिसिएशन वाली चीज़ थी, अगर आप वो फाइन लाइन क्रॉस कर लो तो यू आर एन ईगोइस्टिक पर्सन, अ नार्सिसिस्ट। और अगर आप बहुत पीछे चले जाओ तो आप एक ऐसे पॉइंट पे चले जाते हो वेयर आप अपने आप को आइडेंटिफाई भी शायद ना कर
बिल्कुल।
सको। वेयर डू यू थिंक वी शुड ड्रॉ दैट वेरी फाइन लाइन?
I think that line is, again, it's in the work,
Okay.
right? So, for example, if there's ever a point where I feel as though the criticism that I'm getting for my work renders me to a point where I can't work, that is dangerous.
Okay.
So, for me, it's criticism, warranted or unwarranted, is a reality. At the same time, compliments, warranted or unwarranted, are a reality. But the perception of other people, whether good or bad,
Yeah.
should not determine the amount of effort or the amount of output that you're creating. Because I think that is dangerous on either end.
Yeah.
If it's pumping you up so much that you're like, oh, I don't have to work anymore, I'm just happy where I am, I don't have to prove anything to myself or anyone else, that's dangerous.
Yes.
But if at the same time it's rendering you to a point where you're like, I can't do this anymore, I'm scared, if I do this, what's going to happen? That's also difficult.
All right.
So at any point where you become, at any point where your actions start being a product of someone else's perception rather than your own, that's dangerous.
All right, Sabeen, we have some fun / personality questions for you. Do you have a ritual or a lucky charm before stepping out for a debate?
It's not a lucky charm, but
Uh-huh.
I really like the movie Gladiator and Transformers.
Acha.
And there are these two monologue scenes where before they sort of walk into the arena to fight, there's this monologue there in Gladiator. And there's this, Optimus Prime from Transformers. At the end of
Okay.
the first movie, he just stands there and Linkin Park is playing and he's giving this monologue. I just really like that. I just listen to that. It really
Really?
pumps me up. Yeah, it's very niche, very specific, but I love that.
That's interesting. What's one funny or awkward thing that's happened to you during a conference?
Funny or awkward thing?
Hmm.
Think very basic stuff. You go up to give a speech. This happened to me at Harvard, by the way.
Acha.
That I went up to give a speech, and I've given up 4 or 5 speeches up to this point. Everything is going well. And I went up and I started speaking, and I spoke for 10 seconds, and then my brain it turned off. It was like, no, we're not going to speak today. And I just looked at everyone. I looked at the chair and I was like, you know what? Thank you very much. And I went and sat down.
Really?
I couldn't speak. And I was like, it's better to just sit down
Yeah.
and end this here. And then my next speech was probably the best speech I gave.
Really?
But I was like, this speech, I need to go sit down.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow. Interesting. Okay. If you could debate any historical or fictional character, who would it be and why?
Interesting.
Yeah.
Historical
Or fictional.
or fictional. I would love to be in court with Harvey Specter. Like, I know a lot of people are like, that's not real law, that's not how law works, but I would love to do an MUN with Harvey Specter.
Against him or with him?
Against.
Against him. Because of how sharp he is? Or
there are certain, for some people, they're really smart. And for some people, it's like, this person's just really good at articulation. And then some people, they just have that persona.
Yeah.
That's what I enjoy. I like people with big personas.
All right, perfect. What's one subject outside of your major that you secretly love?
I love religion studies.
Really?
So even during my time at LUMS, I've done a couple of religion courses. I loved them.
Really?
I sometimes even think I might end up doing a master's in like comparative religion or something.
Oh.
I find it really interesting.
Oh, that's nice. That's nice. How was your first plane experience?
Plane experience. I slept the entire way.
Are you
So
serious?
we had a 4-hour ride from Pakistan to, where did we have it? Abu Dhabi.
Acha.
And then Abu Dhabi, say New York, was 14 hours.
Acha.
I slept the entire time. And the entire time I was sleeping, my glasses kept falling off. And this one time I remember we were on the plane and my glasses just fell off. Even though I put them in that compartment, they would just fall off. And at one point I woke up and I was like, I can't see. I don't have my glasses because I wasn't wearing my contacts. And then I turned around and then there was this man just looking at me and he was like, this is yours. Like, thank you. I'll take that.
All right. Back to some serious questions. Looking ahead, Where do you see yourself applying these skills next? UN, policy academia, or activism? Or none?
Ooh, interesting. So I think straight off the bat, right after I graduate, I want to open up my own public speaking training institute. I want to train other people to be trainers. I want to work on a large corporate scale, but I also want to have passion projects, right?
Okay.
So, for example, sending a team of trainers to some of the outskirts of the major cities in Pakistan, right? Training women how to give job interviews, training women how to sort of appear in court when they're giving testimonies, stuff like that. So that is what I want to do. But eventually, I do see myself having somewhat of a political role. I haven't decided whether that's going to be an international level or at a national level, but I do see myself doing that.
All right. How do you handle setbacks or moments of self-doubt?
I think it's very important to wallow in it for a bit. You can't just sort of move on very quickly.
You need
I
to
take
process.
my time. I have an off day. So I give myself an off day where the entire day I'm just in a horrible mood and I'm lying on my bed and I'm just watching Netflix. But then at the end of that day, you have to make the conscious decision, okay, okay, it's done. Let's move on. What is the first thing that I can do? And what I've noticed is that one thing that's really worked for me is condensing huge, larger than life sort of projects into very small, manageable tasks. That today I'm going to read one chapter of my reading, right? Or I'm going to just write down the next post I want to create. Or just create the poster of a new training. When you take small incremental steps, you can feel yourself moving forward, but it's not that big of a burden. So I think that works well.
All right. What's one personal value you never compromise on?
I think integrity. And what that means is that if someone's paid me to deliver a training, then that training has to be the best training that they've ever received. If anyone's invited me to have a conversation, then I need to show up with 100%. It doesn't matter that before that training, before I started the Zoom meeting, I was on my bed crying or having the worst time of my life. The second I log on, it's game time, right? Then it's you have to put in the value that other people are trusting you with. That I think is really important.
If you could give your younger self one piece of advice, what would it be?
You don't have to stop talking. You're going to find people who are willing to listen and who love listening to you. Because when I was small, I was very, very subconscious about the fact मैं बहुत बोलती थी. And I was like, I'm tiring these people and, मैं बात करती थी and I always thought that that's why I don't have any friends because मैं बस बोलती बहुत ज़्यादा हूँ. But then I realized that there are always going to be some people who are just going to match your energy. And they might not be there for you when you're a child or when you're an adolescent or when you're a teenager. But one way or the other, they're going to come into your life and they're going to make sure that all of those times where you felt like you were too loud or too much, you're going to feel just right for them. So I really
Oh my God, it feels at home. All right, lastly, what's one message you'd like to leave our listeners with about confidence, leadership, finding your voice, or anything else you want to say to them?
I think when it comes to public speaking and confidence, it's exposure therapy. So the first time you're going to do something, you're going to be really bad at it. And you might only be able to get one sentence out. And the next time you do it, you might get 2 sentences out. But that's progress. Going from 1 sentence to 2 sentences is progress. Going from having no hand gestures to a small hand gesture is progress. So I would say take your wins as they come, as little they may be, because one day they're going to accumulate and the payout is going to be bigger than anything you've ever imagined.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. आज I think जो इस पॉडकास्ट से एटलीस्ट जो मैंने सीखा है वो ये है कि resilience, perseverance and consistency is your best friend. It's not, you don't have to force yourself to reach somewhere. Things will fall in place. You just have to be very determined. अगर passion है, follow it with all your might and you're gonna get there. And don't ever feel that जो आपके अंदर एक talent है या जो आप अच्छे हो, अगर आप बोलने में भी अच्छे हो, you've seen today कि अगर आपको बोलने का शौक है तो वो आपको कहाँ से कहाँ लेके जा सकता है. So thank you so much everybody. Stay determined, stay passionate and bye.